Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something, well, pretty specific today. Automatic rope locks.
Right. It sounds niche, but it's based on some fascinating market research data you found from cognitive market research.
Exactly. And it covers, the history from 2021, where we are now roughly in 2025, and projections out to 2033.
And these components, they're absolutely crucial. Think stage rigging, industrial safety systems, even climbing gear. They're kind of the unsung heroes.
That's a good way to put it. And getting this level of detail on such a specific part, it really gives you a window into these behind-the-scenes industries, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So the plan is to, sort of break down these numbers and see what the growth story is.
Yeah, exactly. Understand the trajectory, how investment in safety and efficiency actually looks in market terms for, one vital piece of kit.
Makes sense. So where do we start? The big picture, global numbers.
Let's do that. What was the global market size back in, say, 2021?
Okay, so globally, the report pegs it at $130.67 million for 2021.
130 million. Okay. And where's it heading now for 2025?
The estimate for this year, 2025, is $174.5 million.
All right, decent jump. And looking further out to 2033.
That's where it gets quite interesting. The projection is $311.22 million.
Wow. Okay, so from roughly 130 million to over 310 million.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than double in about 12 years.
It is. And that works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 7.5% globally.
7.5%. That feels pretty solid, doesn't it, for a component market like this?
Yeah, I'd say so. It indicates really steady, robust demand worldwide, consistent expansion.
Okay, 7.5% global average. Now, the data gets even more interesting regionally, right? Because that growth isn't spread evenly.
Not at all. There are definite regional variations.
Let's start with North America.
Yeah.
Major market, obviously, but how does it stack up growth-wise?
Right. North America is significant. It was $42.9 million back in 2021.
Okay.
Expected to hit $55.4 million this year, 2025.
Yeah.
And the projection for 2033 is $95.5 million.
95.5 million. So what's the regional CEGR there?
It comes in at 7.0%.
Oh, okay. So just a touch below that global average of 7.5%.
Exactly. And within North America, the U.S. is, of course, the biggest slice. Its CAGR is forecast at 6.9%.
Right.
But Canada is projected a bit higher, 7.3% CAGR. And Mexico actually shows the strongest growth forecast in the region, 7.7%.
7.7% for Mexico. That's interesting. Even that small difference, 6.9% MSS, 7.7%. It hints at something, doesn't it?
It really does. It could be, different levels of industrial activity, maybe faster adoption of new safety regs, infrastructure booms, lots of factors.
Yeah, different market dynamics playing out. Fascinating. Okay, let's hop across the pond to Europe. What's the picture there?
Europe's another really key market. Started at $37.1 million in 2021.
Yeah.
And it's projected to reach $84.7 million by 2033. The regional CGR diet is 7.2%.
7.2%. So slightly faster than North America, but still just under the global average.
Correct. And again, you see variations within Europe, Germany, UK, France.
Yeah.
They're hovering around that 7% mark, give or take a decimal point, like 6.9 to 7.1%.
Pretty stacked.
Yeah. But then Italy and Spain edge a bit higher. Italy's forecast is 7.5% and Spain is 7.6%.
Okay, so slightly more momentum there. Any other standouts in Europe?
Well, the report lumps together a rest of Europe category. And interestingly, that group has the highest projected CGR in Europe at 7.9%.
Huh. So the smaller markets combined are actually growing fastest.
Seems that way. Suggests maybe more widespread upgrades or expansions happening across a range of those, perhaps slightly smaller economies.
Interesting. So even within established regions, you get these pockets of faster growth. Now let's talk about Asia Pacific. The report specifically calls it a key growth hub.
Yeah, this is where the numbers really start to accelerate. Asia Pacific was $32.1 million in 2021.
Right.
But it's forecast to hit $86.8 million by 2033. And that comes with the highest regional CGR we've seen so far, 8.3%.
8.3%. Okay, that is significantly quicker than North America and Europe. What's driving that surge?
It's pretty broad-based growth across the region. China's the biggest market there,
Yeah.
naturally, with an 8.4% CGR forecast. But you see even faster projected growth in places like India and Australia, both forecast at 8.6% CAGR.
Wow, 8.6.
And leading the entire region, actually leading globally in terms of sub-regional growth in this report, is Southeast Asia. Their projected CAGR is 8.8%.
Almost 9%, 8.8% in Southeast Asia. That's
No shit.
that's rapid. What does that signal?
It strongly suggests that the underlying drivers, we'll talk about safety standards, infrastructure, maybe the events industry, automation, all those things are just hitting harder and faster there right now.
So huge investments, rapid development.
Exactly. Compared to the more mature markets, the pace of change and adoption seems much quicker in many parts of Asia Pacific, especially Southeast Asia, India, Australia, based on these numbers.
It really paints a picture of dynamic economic activity.
Wow.
Okay, what about Latin America? This source also mentioned aggressive expansion there.
Yes, Latin America also shows very robust growth figures. Brazil is the biggest market, forecast at 7.7% CAGR.
Okay, above the global average.
Definitely. But look at some others. Argentina is projected at 8.0%, Colombia and Peru both at 7.9%, and Chile actually leads the region forecast-wise at 8.1% CAGR.
So, again, multiple countries well above the 7.5% global average. It mirrors the Asia-Pacific trend, doesn't it?
It does. It points to similar underlying factors, economic growth fueling investment in industry, construction, and adopting newer safety tech. That aggressive expansion seems well supported by these figures.
Really highlights where a lot of the new demand is expected to come from.
Yeah.
Okay, let's quickly cover the Middle East and Africa. What did the data show there?
That region shows steady growth, but generally at a slightly slower projected pace than the others we've discussed.
Yep.
Countries like Egypt and Turkey, for instance, have KGRs forecast around 6.7% to 7.1%. The rest of Middle East category is similar, around 6.7%. So it's definitely growing, just not quite at that accelerated rate seen in APAC or LATAM, according to this particular data set.
Got it. So summing up the regions.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
According to this particular data set.
Got it. So summing up the regions. Solid global growth, but clear hotspots accelerating much faster, particularly in Asia-Pacific and Latin America.
Precisely.
Now, the report explicitly lists the reasons why this market is growing. What are those key drivers?
Right. It boils down to three main things, according to the source. First, simply increasing safety standards globally.
Makes sense. Regulations get tighter, awareness improves.
Exactly. Companies need better certified equipment,
Yep.
so demand for things like reliable automatic locks goes up. That's driver number one.
Okay. What's number two?
Number two is the move towards automation in rigging and lifting systems.
Ah, right. Taking the manual element out.
Yeah. Automatic rope locks are key components in making those automated systems work efficiently and safely. It improves workflow, reduces potential for human error.
So safety driving it, automation driving it was the third factor.
The third one is just rising demand from key sectors that use these locks heavily. Think live events, bigger concerts, more complex stage setups.
Yeah, you see that everywhere.
Also industrial applications, factories, warehouses, material handling, and of course construction. Big infrastructure projects, new buildings, all need safe lifting and rigging.
So it's that triple whammy. Better safety rules, more automation, plus growth in the core industries that use this stuff.
That's the picture the report paints. Those factors together create what it calls that solid growth trajectory globally.
And tying it back to the regional data, it suggests those drivers are perhaps hitting with more force or at an accelerated pace in places like Asia Pacific and Latin America right now.
That seems to be the implication, yes. The higher CGRs there reflect a faster uptake or expansion related to those very drivers.
It really grounds the numbers in what's actually happening. Okay, so let's bring this home for you, the listener. We've seen a market projected to more than double globally between 2021 and 2033.
Going from about $130 million to over $311 million.
With these really dynamic growth spots, Southeast Asia, India, Australia, Chile, Argentina, leading the pack in terms of growth rate.
So what does this mean in the real world? It means that sort of invisible infrastructure that keeps things safe and efficient is constantly expanding and improving.
Right, so the next time you're at a concert and see that massive stage rig,
Or you pass a construction site with cranes lifting heavy loads.
or even just think about complex processes inside a factory.
You can picture this growing market for components like automatic rope locks, working reliably behind the scenes. It's about investment in safety, investment in efficiency.
Yeah, it shows how these fundamental, maybe easily overlooked parts are actually indicators of bigger global trends. Safety priorities, automation adoption, economic development.
It really does connect the dots.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with based on this data. We see this really strong growth, especially accelerating in Asia-Pacific and Latin America. Does this maybe hint at broader shifts?
Shifts in what sense?
Well, like where the bulk of new industrialization or major infrastructure projects or even, say, large-scale event production is concentrating globally.
Ah, interesting.
And does it suggest that maybe the adoption of the latest safety tech and automation is actually happening fastest now in these emerging dynamic economies rather than the established ones?
That's a really provocative question. It certainly makes you think about the hidden mechanics driving the world around us and maybe where the future momentum lies.
Definitely gives you something to mull over. Okay, welcome to the deep dive. So we've got this stack of source material you sent over, all focused on a really interesting kind of niche market, automatic rope locks.
That's right.
And if you, listening, have ever been amazed at a theater show or rocked out at a big concert or even just seen, construction crews lifting huge things, you've probably benefited from what these devices do, even if you didn't realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're often working behind the scenes, quite literally sometimes.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really dive into this material you provided. We want to unpack the key forces pushing this market forward, some of the challenges it's facing, and, well, where the sources think it might be going next.
Yeah, and it's important to note these aren't just simple bits of metal. They're actively changing how things work in terms of safety, automation, and complex rigging systems.
Rigging the systems.
All right, not just backstage in theaters, but in heavy industry as well. It's quite broad.
Okay, let's get into it then. So diving right in, what's really driving the momentum here? What did the sources highlight as the big drivers for automatic rope locks?
Well, one of the biggest factors, it really jumped out from the research, is the huge demand coming from stage automation.
Stage automation?
Yeah, especially in entertainment venues. Think theaters, big concert halls, that kind of thing.
So it's the whole making the show bigger, flashier, more complex. Is that the idea?
That's part of it, but it's more fundamental than that. They're really essential for the kind of precision and reliability you need in modern rigging systems.
Rigging, you mentioned that. So that's the ropes, pulleys, moving scenery around.
Exactly. All the gear used to lift and move scenery, lighting rigs, sometimes even performers. Automatic locks are, well, crucial for making scene changes safer and much quicker.
Safer and quicker.
Yeah, they really cut down on the physical strain for the crew, compared to the old manual rope systems. And the potential hazards, too.
So it means less grunt work for the backstage team, which then translates to maybe smoother, faster transitions for the audience watching.
Precisely. It just streamlines the whole backstage operation, makes the performance flow better. And, critically, it's a massive safety improvement for everyone working near or under those heavy moving loads. Technicians, performers.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Safety's got to be paramount there. Does that safety focus carry over into other areas the sources mentioned?
Oh, absolutely. And that takes us straight to another key driver. Stricter safety regulations in industry and construction.
Okay. Not just entertainment.
Right. Global standards are getting tighter, really aiming to cut down workplace injuries, and that's pushing industries like manufacturing, high-rise construction to adopt these kinds of automated safety devices.
So protecting the stage crew, but also the worker on a factory floor or hanging off a skyscraper.
Exactly that. Their main job in those settings is to securely hold suspended loads while they're being lifted or lowered.
Suspended loads.
Yeah.
So anything heavy hanging on a crane or a winch.
Yep. Anything like that. In places where dropping that load could be, well, catastrophic, these locks add a layer of security, of stability that you just don't get with the old manual methods. It provides real confidence.
Okay, so we've got strong demand from entertainment plus these stricter safety rules. What else did the research point to as fueling this growth?
The technology itself is a big one. Advancements in rigging and load control tech. It's not a static field.
Right.
The material really highlights that modern rope locks are way more than just like mechanical brakes now.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, right? They're getting smart.
They really are. We're talking about features like built-in load sensors.
So it knows how heavy the load is.
Constantly knows the exact weight it's holding. Plus, remote control capabilities, real-time feedback on whether it's locked or not. This level of digital control, it goes way beyond just physically stopping a rope. It gives you crucial data, precision.
And I bet that kind of sophisticated high-tech ability really appeals to industries where, precision is absolutely everything.
You got it. Think aerospace, broadcast studios, maybe those huge, complex touring shows for bands. They need non-negotiable accuracy and automation. These smart features make automatic rope locks super attractive to them, gives them the control and the data they need.
Okay. So powerful forces pushing things forward,
Yeah.
demand, safety, tech, innovation. But like you said, no market's perfect. The sources also talked about roadblocks, didn't they?
Yeah.
What are the main things holding back growth?
Yeah, definitely. The sources consistently flag cost as a major barrier. Installing these systems isn't cheap.
Right. And I'm guessing it's not just the price tag on the lock itself.
No, exactly. That's the key. It's the total cost. You've got the installation, getting it all set up and commissioned, the ongoing maintenance, plus the training needed for the people operating it. That can all add up and really put off smaller venues, maybe smaller industrial operations that are working with tighter budgets. You need specialized parts, skilled installers, trained staff. It's a whole package.
So it's the system cost, the whole ecosystem around it. Not
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
So it's the system cost, the whole ecosystem around it, not just one piece of hardware. That definitely sounds like a significant financial hurdle if you're not a huge operation.
It really is. And then there's another big one, compatibility. Trying to fit this new tech into existing buildings and infrastructure.
Ah, right.
A lot of older theaters, industrial plants, even some heritage buildings. They just weren't designed with automation in mind.
So retrofitting must be a real headache.
It can be incredibly tricky logistically and expensive, too.
Yeah.
The research even points out that sometimes you run into architectural rules or historical preservation guidelines.
You mean you literally can't change the building?
Sometimes, yeah. You might be prevented from making the structural modifications needed to fit the new automated rigging system. You just can't alter the space.
Wow, that's a pretty unique challenge, especially in older cities or historic venues. Okay, what about the tech itself? Is reliability a concern? Are people worried it might fail?
That's definitely another key point raised in the sources. Look, automation brings huge benefits, no doubt. Performance, safety.
But it also means you're relying on electronic components, complex mechanics. And, the risk of something failing electrically or mechanically, it's always there, even if it's small.
And I suppose the consequences, if one does fail in these kinds of situations,
Yeah.
it's not just an inconvenience, is it?
Not at all. It's significantly more serious. Imagine an automatic lock failing during a live show with performers suspended in the air.
Oh, wow.
Or during a really heavy industrial lift. The results could be massively disruptive delays, damage, or far, far worse. Potentially incredibly dangerous, leading to serious injuries.
Yeah.
And that inherent risk, understandably, makes some operators a bit cautious, especially those maybe more used to purely mechanical systems they feel they understand better. They hesitate to go full automation.
Okay, so we've covered the drivers pushing it forward and the hurdles holding it back. Let's shift gears now and look ahead. What are the really interesting emerging trends the sources see shaping the future of this market?
One really fascinating trend is seeing them pop up in more, let's call them unconventional venues. Unconventional. Like where exactly?
Think cruise ships putting on big Broadway-style shows, theme parks with complex rides and spectacles, major sports arenas doing elaborate pregame shows or halftime events.
Oh, okay. I can see that. Places you might not immediately think of needing theater rigging, but they do have these big repeated shows.
Exactly. These places need immersive, high-impact staging, displays, effects, stuff that's often repeated multiple times a day or week after week.
Right.
Automatic rope locks give them the repeatability, the precision, and crucially, the safety control they need to pull off these complex effects reliably and consistently, show after show after show.
So they become key for delivering that consistent spectacle safely.
Interesting. What other trends are coming through?
We're seeing a big push towards making the rope locks themselves lighter and more modular in their design.
Lighter and modular. How are they managing that?
A lot of it is down to innovations in materials, using advanced engineered alloys, high-performance polymers, stuff like that. And what's the practical upside for the users? Easier to move around. Portability.
Exactly that. Manufacturers are managing to create systems that are still incredibly durable, but are also significantly lighter and easier to transport, set up, and reconfigure.
That sounds like a huge deal for...
It's a game changer for touring production crews, for equipment rental companies, for any kind of mobile entertainment setup. They need reliable gear that travels well and can be set up and struck quickly in different venues.
Yeah, makes perfect sense for the live events world, always on the move. Okay, and finally, in today's super connected world, Is this tech talking to other systems? Is it integrating?
That's probably the biggest trend shaping the future, arguably. We're seeing major integration into broader IoT ecosystems.
Internet of Things.
Right.
Mm.
And smart facility management platforms. So automatic rope locks aren't just standalone devices anymore. They're becoming nodes in a wider digital control network within a building or venue.
Okay, and what does that kind of deep integration actually let them do? What are the benefits?
Well, it opens up things like real-time monitoring, tracking the load, the speed, system performance, all that data instantly available. Operators know exactly what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It also facilitates predictive maintenance.
So it can tell you when it might fail.
Exactly, using data analysis to predict potential failures before they happen, so you can schedule maintenance proactively, avoid unexpected downtime, and it also allows for centralized load management, controlling and monitoring all the rigging across an entire facility from one place.
So the big picture goal here is helping venues and facilities run smarter, safer, and just more efficiently by making the rigging system a fully integrated part of the building's sort of digital brain.
That sums it up perfectly.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
So let's try and bring this all together then, based on this deep dive into the source material you shared. What's the overall picture? Where does the automatic rope locks market stand right now?
Well, based on these sources, it's definitely a market on an exciting path. There's clear demand driving it from entertainment needing sophisticated automation and from industry needing enhanced safety, and it's being fueled by some rapid tech innovation, especially around those smart features we talked about.
Right. But it's also grappling with some very real practical hurdles, particularly around that significant cost, the initial investment, and the ongoing expense, and the headaches of integrating with older buildings and systems, plus that constant critical need for absolute reliability, given what's at stake.
Exactly. Those are the key challenges. Yet, despite those hurdles, these systems are really proving their worth. They're becoming pretty indispensable across a surprisingly wide range of sectors, from, creating those dazzling stage shows to enabling essential and safe industrial lifting operations. They really do represent a significant step forward in both safety and automation for lifting and rigging wherever they're used.
Okay. So thinking about everything we've discussed, those challenges around cost, the integration difficulty, especially with legacy systems, and that absolute necessity for rock-solid reliability in high-stakes situations. What specific areas do you think need the most attention from the developers, the manufacturers, for automatic rope lock to really unlock their full potential? To become truly widespread across all the sectors we've touched on. Something for you to think about until our next deep dive.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai